Welcome to another episode of the Payments Strategy Show. I'm Joshua Silver, founder and CEO of Rainforest. We help software platforms embed payment processing into their core product to grow revenue and improve customer retention. I'm here today with an awesome guest named Brad Greene. Brad is co-founder and COO at H3 Partners, where he acquires and grows vertically focused software businesses that do somewhere between 3 and 15 million in ARR. Before that, Brad has a long history in payments. He was the VP of Commerce and Payments at HubSpot and at Mindbody. Brad, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure, Joshua.
So Brad, just to get into it, I always like to ask my guests, tell me a little bit about your background. How did you first get into software and payments?
Yeah, so I came from the telecommunications industry and was specifically focused on the mobile side of the industry. So I knew a lot about mobile technology and the mobile ecosystem, the industry structure, who the players were, whether it was mobile operators, mobile device manufacturers. And it was right around 2010, and this is when the smartphone really started to take off in terms of consumer adoption. And I ended up meeting with some executives from Visa, and we struck up a conversation about where all this was headed. What is the future of mobile commerce and how is it going to unfold? You know, the folks at Visa were very concerned at this time. They were afraid they might get disrupted as commerce shifted from, in-store shopping and then made its way onto the large screen in terms of e-commerce. And then finally, what was going to happen as things moved to the mobile device. They were worried about things like, how are consumers going to enter credit card information on such a tiny screen? And, are smaller players like PayPal going to figure out how to come in and basically disintermediate and disrupt us? And so Visa liked my background in mobile and decided to hire me to come in and build out their mobile strategy and ultimately a suite of mobile solutions. So that was my entry into the world of payments, and I've sort of been hooked ever since.
Well, I'm curious, fast forward 15, 16 years now, what's your take on where we're at with mobile payments adoption? And, do you think we've seen some of the disruption that Visa and the other card networks thought was going to happen, or, what's the overall state at this point?
Yeah, well, I think it's just the shift to mobile commerce has been unbelievably amazing. I mean, the percentage of total, consumer transactions now on mobile is, I think, higher than any of us ever expected it would reach. But what's also really interesting is the traditional players, by and large, did not get disrupted. And I think the more traditional players, whether it was the card networks or the card issuing banks, they sort of figured it out along the way. And their rails are still pretty predominant in terms of, carrying transaction volume. And so to me, it's interesting that on the one hand, the consumer behavior ended up moving farther and faster than I think anybody imagined. And yet the traditional players have managed to, by and large, stay really.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really a testament in some ways to Apple. Apple probably had, years ago when they launched Apple Pay, they probably had enough distribution that they could have disrupted the card networks. Instead, they didn't, and they partnered. And I think that, in many ways, in my opinion, changed the trajectory, or maybe kept the trajectory on course, if you will, with the role of the card network. So certainly an interesting move by Apple putting that stake in the ground.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let's kind of fast forward. You've been an operator for many, many years. You're now on the investor side. How has your perspective, Brad, evolved as you've transitioned from being an operator to an investor?
Yeah, I think when you're in an operator role, you're able to really focus deeply on, your target market, right? A single market segment. And you're trying to solve whether it's a single problem or a relatively small handful of problems for a given group of customers, right? And you can just go really deep, and you have to go deep in order to make that work successful. So I think personally, those have been my most rewarding roles, those operating roles. As an investor, you don't really have the time to go as deep, and you don't really have the opportunity to get to know a single set of customers and solve their problems. You're constantly just looking at new opportunities, new deal flow, and and working against the clock to negotiate and hopefully close transactions. So I guess the one thing, though, about the investor role is pattern recognition. You get to look at so many different opportunities over a relatively short period of time that you can sort of spot trends and see what works and doesn't, and accumulate that information faster than you could in any single operating role. Hopefully the two have sort of been complementary for me and made me more effective as I've sort of transitioned between investor roles and operating roles during my career.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. What are some of the changes you've noticed in the last few years? Any interesting trends in particular in either payments or vertical software?
Yeah, well, I think, with payments, one is, and you brought up Apple, and when they added the NFC technology to the iPhone and created Apple Wallet, and enabled everybody to load these cards into their phones and use them to tap and pay. It has been pretty remarkable for me to watch, just because I worked specifically on that problem for several years. The U.S. was way behind the rest of the world in terms of chip technology and contactless. Yep. You never saw anybody tap a plastic card or a mobile device at the point of sale to pay for things. And now it's just ubiquitous. We go anywhere at the physical point of sale, and that's how people are paying. So that one, just personally, given my history, has really been fascinating for me to see the change. But I think in terms of software and vertical platforms, probably the biggest one for me is just how much revenue many SaaS platforms are able to generate through integrated payments. And for a lot of these software businesses now, the payments revenue actually exceeds the SaaS revenue. And that's just mind-blowing to me. It's almost like these platforms have gone from SaaS first to payments first. And, I recall at Mindbody, our investors were fascinated with us and very happy with us that we're able to grow payments to over a third of our total revenue. Like, that was just a milestone in vertical SaaS. Yep. And now it's not uncommon to see a software platform generate over half of its revenue from payments. So that's been pretty amazing for me to watch over the past several years.
Yeah, well, certainly you've been a trailblazer in the industry. I mean, Mindbody for so many years was the example that investors held up as someone doing it right. And so it's incredible to think about how far we've come. I mean, even on the mobile chip technology, I remember back in 2015, I was working in the healthcare space, and we did the rollout of EMV devices, thousands and thousands and thousands of terminals. And I just remember how clunky they were. And, you still didn't have quick chip then. You didn't have a whole lot of tap to pay back in those days. And so, in 10 years, we've kind of not only replaced the terminals from card swipes, but now we've kind of, in many ways, rendered EMV obsolete, at least, insert or dip your card as it were. So curious, as an investor, you have to pick the winners, right? You have to pick, your whole job is contingent upon picking companies that are going to do well and win in their category. What are some of the criteria that you look at when deciding whether to invest or not? And have you found there are certain predictors of success?
Yeah, I think just, generically setting aside the integrated payments opportunity, we always like to start with asking, what problems is this platform trying to solve for its users? Are these real pain points? Is there an abundance or a dearth of other alternatives that business might have to get those problems solved? If it's a real problem and it's a real pain point and there aren't a lot of alternatives available to solve those pain points, that's an exciting opportunity. That's an important, I think, first question to ask. There are other things you look at as an investor, sort of customer concentration. You look at, all the typical things you would look at around growth rates and margins and those kinds of things. I think when it comes to the payments part of the business and looking to understand, is that a significant opportunity? You need to look at, is this vertical software product really like a mission critical system of record for its customers? Or is it just a point solution? And point solutions are fine. You can build a successful business out of those or through a portfolio of those. But when it comes to payments, it really needs to be a major system of record, if not the system of record for the business. And then, the second question is, even if it's a system of record, it's a system of record in the flow of commerce. And what I mean by that is does that business's trading partners, whether they be customers or suppliers, do those parties interact with each other through the software?
Right.
And if the answer is yes, then you've got the opportunity to be a big winner with embedded payments. And if the answer is no, then it's probably going to be a struggle. Maybe payments is an opportunity, but sort of a relatively minor opportunity in terms of revenue generation. So those are the things as an investor when you're looking at just the opportunity at large, but also specifically the payments part of it. Those are the questions you have to ask. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about one of my favorite topics, which is adoption of payments. I think there's a misconception out there, build it and they will come. If you have payments, everybody's going to start using it. Dollars will start getting processed, revenue rolling in. I would imagine you'd agree that the reality is a lot more nuanced. Actually getting merchants to sign up, start transacting, converting volume from offline payments, whether it's check, cash, or just payments that are outside of the system to through the system, is tough. Curious, in your experience, what do SaaS companies need to get right to really drive substantial revenue and get that adoption that they're hoping they will?
Yeah, well, I'd go back to the first question around just being in the commerce flow. So they need to start out day one, but by solving for basically enabling commerce between that business and its customers or suppliers or business partners. And so if that's just not built into the core functionality of the platform, it's just really going to be tough to get the users to adopt an embedded payments offering. It just won't be a natural experience or solve a real pain point. But assuming that's in place, that there is this potential of commerce to flow through the platform, you got to do a number of other things right. You got to get the go-to-market right. You have to think about, how am I going to make prospects or my existing install base aware of this? How am I going to talk about real benefits of it? How am I going to price it? How am I going to sell it? And how am I going to support it? And so you have to think about it the way you would about launching any other product and just getting all those things right. I think just like you said, bolting it on and just sort of hoping and assuming users will discover it and automatically adopt it, use it, get value out of it is wishful thinking. And you're going to end up with probably a project that doesn't turn out to be as successful for you as you would hope. So I think thinking about all those things, making sure you have a real buttoned up, thoughtful plan in place around all those things when you launch will really help enhance the prospects for success.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Which vertical SaaS companies stand out to you as role models? Which companies do you think got it right? And what can we learn from these companies?
Yeah, a couple come to mind. One is Shopify. They just made it super simple to get up and running with an online store and accept payments in minutes, not days or weeks. That was pretty revolutionary at the time. And if you look at other e-commerce platforms, shopping carts, website builders, et cetera, at the time, you had to it was a pretty convoluted process to get up and running. And then if you wanted to plug payment enablement into it, which you have to in the e-commerce world, people can't, tap their plastic cards against the screen,
right,
magically pay. You had to go to a different payment processor or gateway to set all that up and to figure out how to integrate it. And so, that was fine for a Nike.com or, Amazon.com, big e-commerce player that had a big IT team and engineering staff. But really for the smaller seller, that was just an impossible technological and operational challenge. So Shopify just basically democratized, the e-commerce industry and made it easier for, a little seller to get up and running fast and simply, including that integrated payments account. So really admire what they did. I think a lot of others in the industry have tried to emulate their success and looked at them as a role model. Another one's my old employer, Mindbody, not to wear out the Mindbody story, but the software made it incredibly easy for consumers to find a yoga class or a CrossFit workout and then just seamlessly book and pay for that class online and, especially through the mobile device. And so it solved a real pain point for consumers and fitness businesses. Obviously, with the integrated payments piece fit beautifully into that flow, and they were able to monetize that with great success. Those are two names I always think about with just great admiration. Shopify of mine.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, they really hit the trifecta there. They're the system of record. They're in the flow of commerce. And then with Mindbody and Shopify, there's both a discovery angle, right? They're helping you find new products. They're helping you find classes, so there's kind of a marketplace-esque component to it as well. So I think those really are the trifecta. Rubber hits the road. It's time to select a payments vendor, payments partner for a software company. You've been on both sides of this. You've been on the provider side. You've been on the buyer side. You've been an investor. You've been on the board. You've kind of seen it from all angles over decades. In your experience, what do software companies need to consider when they're choosing which payment provider to work with? What are those critical things?
Yeah, I think, you look at all the typical things you would in a partnership that involves a really complex technical service. You look at features, you look at the pace of innovation, you look at the quality of the documentation. Those are all sort of table stakes things. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the economics matter and have to be within range to make everything work. But I think the most important thing is sort of asking yourself as a SaaS platform, what do we know and what do we not know? What don't we know here? And can this partner help us learn? Can this partner support us through this journey? Or do I have to figure out all this on my own? And I get a set of documentation with some, API calls and I'm sort of like, I got to stick this in my software code. And that's just job one to make it work. And now I've got to figure out the whole launch strategy, go-to-market strategy. How do I price this? How do I talk about this with my customers? And so I think having a partner who can help you through that educational journey and that launch is pretty critical. We've seen players do that really well, and we've seen players who that's just not part of what they offer at all. So I think in particular for, a first-time software platform to payments, understanding how critical that education and support and partnership is for you to get this right. That's probably an underappreciated part of this that they don't know. And so I'd encourage, again, especially these first-time software platforms to really think about how can we find a partner who will help us through this journey and help make us a success.
Looking ahead to the future, any trends or challenges that you think will define vertical SaaS over the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's, everybody's talking about it, but certainly AI. I think we're in vertical SaaS, we're all wondering what will the impact of AI be? I know we're trying to sort that out as investors. What does this mean? Is it an opportunity to add more value to the platform through predictive analytics or, autonomous agent behavior, help our customers cut their costs or do their jobs better or smooth out workflows? Is it an opportunity to write code faster by deploying, sort of AI type co-pilots? Is it an opportunity for us to improve customer support by automating a chatbot within our product or on our website? So I think everybody's looking at that, but also the just bigger question, like how disruptive is this going to be? Is a business or a user going to be able to just sit down and literally ask an AI model, can you build for me a software platform that will do these 7 things and connect into my existing database or, other software products? And are we going to see a day where, the AI would literally be able to build that highly custom platform for an individual customer and not need a software vendor, not need to purchase third-party packaged software? Those are scary questions. I think a lot of people in vertical software are asking themselves these days. And I do come back to, I think the industry needs to take it very seriously, but not panic. And I think we may be, well away from the time where AI is able to craft something that's incredibly bespoke for a particular segment. I think it's going to hit faster with horizontal software. And so as long as you have entrepreneurs, founders, operating teams who are just maniacally focused, again, on understanding a particular pain point or problem in a particular market segment, and then just going about solving for that. It just feels to me like that will still be an enduring business model. I think, that's the way to solve for that and hopefully avoid being disrupted by AI.
Interesting viewpoints. Lots of concern and excitement about AI the more I talk to people. Real quick in closing, if you could give just one piece of advice to SaaS leaders that really want to propel their payments business, what would you tell them? Just one piece of advice.
Yeah, I just say sit in the seat of your users and just think about what do they need to do to smooth the flow of commerce in their business. What do they need to do to make that as easy as possible, not only on their internal teams, but for the end consumers, suppliers, business partners, employees, contractors that they're doing business with them. Just think about what are all the things you could do for your customers if you just sit in their seat and think about what they need and what could help them improve the efficiency or scalability of their businesses. And then the answers will come. Certainly Gen 1, the answer was, well, you can help them get paid a lot more smoothly. Yeah. And you can help your users and customers pay more smoothly. You just dramatically increase that payment experience. So now it's more like, what else can you help them do? Can you improve their treasury operations, right? Can you provide them highly integrated bank account? Can you loan them money and even determine when they need money before they even know they need money, whether it's a working capital line of credit, a loan? Can you do that through the platform? Can you help their maybe employees get paid faster? The older of waiting every 2 weeks for that paycheck versus getting paid out potentially every day. And so, just again, sitting in the seat of your customers and thinking about all the jobs they have to do and problems they can solve and how many of those things you can make better, faster, smoother, more efficient by embedding these different financial services offerings into your platform. So I think there's just a lot of exciting possibilities. And again, we're going well beyond payments and to sort of this next generation of a suite of fintech solutions that can really improve the lives and daily existence of users.
Very good. Well, Brad, thank you so much for being with us and sharing all of your wisdom from your decades of experience. Again, Brad Greene from H3 Partners. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Joshua.